What's going on, my lords and ladies? And Moonveil is my favorite katana in the game, and now it is time to update and see how this weapon holds up in the DLC. I will be updating my personal build while trying my best to reach Moonveil's maximum potential. I am the Samurai and I will be covering the Lunar Samurai's playstyle, the latest equipment for this build, along with useful gameplay tips and more. If you are a Moonveil master like me and ready to hit the DLC with a bang, this video is for you. The Lunar Samurai gracefully takes out enemies with quick and hard-hitting unsheathed attacks. Not only enemies will suffer bursts of damage, they will also most of the time be stance broken easily, giving this build more opportunities to deal more damage. In most cases, fights end fast because of this setup's fluid combos. The Moonveil katana alone gives this build the versatility it needs because of the transient moonlight's unique properties, making the Lunar Samurai deadly in any situation. Build playstyle is out of the way, let's start this guide by tackling the Moonlight Samurai's stats. Note that I will be standardizing all of my builds around level 200, and it is up to you if you wish to level up past this level. Starting with Bigger first, and I have 45 points allotted to it as this build requires proper dodging. You can potentially increase Vigor to 50 or higher, but I prefer more attack rating than survivability. It all boils down to how well you know the game. Next is Mind, and 25 points were allocated to it. However, I find myself flasking a lot with this setup since again I prefer more attack rating. You can easily lower down dexterity and intelligence later on and make mine at least 35 for comfort. Endurance is next, and I have 25 points allocated to it. The Moonveil's skill eats a lot of stamina, especially when performed in quick successions, but I find 25 points just fine. While 12 points were allocated to strength just to wield both of our katanas later on. It is time for the main stats for this build, and 68 points were allocated to dexterity, while 69 points for intelligence. Both of the katanas that we will be using in this build are dexterity and intelligence based, so you are good to go. Next is Fate, and 25 points were allotted to Fate so you can access attack and defense boosting incantations so we can increase the build's offensive and defensive capabilities. Just disregard Arcane and no points were added to it. Stats are out of the way, let's move on to the Lunar Samurai's equipment. As usual, all of my items locations will be linked in the description section below along with a build showcase, so stay tuned for that as well. Starting with the main weapon that we already mentioned, the Moonveil katana. This katana requires 12 strength and 18 dexterity and 23 intelligence and has B scaling for intelligence and dexterity and E for strength. But what makes this weapon shine is our holy grail, the Transient Moonlight skill. A unique skill that fires up a beam or shockwave and deals additional damage on top of your unsheathing attacks. If you want to call it a day by just using this weapon, you can do so because this weapon performs exceptionally well in melee and ranged combat. When pressing L2 and R1 button, this weapon deals with regular unsheathing attacks with a special horizontal shockwave. The R1 version is mostly used when clearing a large group of enemies, while an overhead unsheath attack with a vertical projectile can be performed when pressing L2 plus R2 button. This is going to be your bread and butter skill, especially when dealing with bosses. The R2 version of the skill hits like a truck and can easily deal heavy stance damage to targets. Moving on to the Moonveil's pros and cons, and the first thing that I can think of for its pros is, of course, its weapon's versatile combat as mentioned. This weapon will allow you to perform in almost in any situation, making it easier for you to maintain your DPS easily. Not to mention that the R2 shockwave or beam has a great range which can easily hit targets because of the beam's fast moving speed. As mentioned previously, with the right setup, targets can be stance broken easily. If enemies can easily be stance broken, of course the faster they are going to die because you are pumping so much DPS. Now for the cons, I honestly can't think of any major cons for this weapon. Not that I am fanboying or something, just hear me out. The Transient Moonlight's FP cost is just 15 FP per use, and the unsheathed attack movesets is in general has a reasonable wind up or recovery time. I guess the nearest con that I can think of is this skill will lock you up with intelligence setup. You will be forced to use sorceries if you want variety, but it all boils down to personal preference. Now if you ask me, I just use Moonveil all day and master it to the full. However, the majority of you prefer diversity in combat. Because of this, I decided to use Karyan Glintblade Staff as the secondary weapon since this build revolves around intelligence anyway. Using this staff will increase Glintblade sorceries potency by 15%, which are going to be our main sorceries for this setup. For us to cast incantations, I suggest using Finger Seal for us to have access to our key buffs later on. Moving on to my second katana for this build, which is the Starline Katana. I'm not going to deep dive into this weapon in this video, and if you want to main this katana, you can check my Cosmic Samurai build in the card here or in the description. I decided to use the Starline Katana as my secondary weapon for variety purposes. I mentioned in my Cosmic Samurai build that I think that it is going to be a great sub-weapon for Moonveil setups, so here we are. It does match up the build, and also this katana is so fun to use when dealing with a large group of enemies or when in exploration. So now you do have an option to be as flashy as you want, as you both have the best intelligence-based katana in the game. Weapons are out of the way, let's move on to my suggested spells. I mentioned that we will be accessing buffs when using this build, and the first one on the list is Flame Grant Me Strength Incantation for an additional 20% physical attack boost and stamina recovery buff. The second buff on the list is of course Golden Vow. This buff increases overall damage by 15% and adds 10% damage negation, which is very helpful for this build. Next, I suggest slotting in Glint Blade Phalanx Steel, since it can help you deal additional raw damage and stance damage, which complements your Moonveil Katana. I also suggest slotting Glint Blade Trio as it matches the theme pretty well and can be a good range damage dealing sorcery. Compared to the Glint Blade Phalanx, you can spam this sorcery to easily ramp up your damage, as you can summon swords and use the Transient Moonlight with it, and I find it super cool as it gives me this Virgil vibes finally. I will suggest slotting in Terra Magica Still, which casts a magic puddle on the ground or a sigil, which increases magic damage by 35% and lasts for 30 seconds. All of our damage sources in this build are magic based, so this will improve the build's overall damage. Also, there are a lot of sorceries that you can take advantage of when using this setup, which I will be diving into the advanced tips sections of this guide. But before anything else, only 6% of you who watch the channel regularly are subscribed, so help the channel by subscribing today, and it's free anyway, and I will thank you forever. If you can hit that like button as well, it will surely help me a lot. Join our Discord server as we are building an empire where you can find like-minded people who love the same genre. Now back into the video. Weapons are out of the way, let's move on to my suggested talismans. The first talisman on the list is of course our staple Shard of Alexander. This provides a 15% skill damage increase, especially when performing the Transient Moonlight. The second one on the list is of course Magic Scorpion Charm. Since we are dealing mostly magic damage when using this build, the 12% additional magic damage that this talisman provides will be beneficial for this setup in exchange of 10% increase of physical damage taken. The next talisman on the list is of course Two-Headed Turtle Talisman. When you get used to the Lunar Samurai's gameplay, you will be able to deal with multiple Transient Moonlights in a row, so it drains your stamina quickly. This talisman will increase your stamina recovery, so you can pull off more actions in combat. The fourth talisman is kind of flexible in this build. However, for general use, I will be suggesting the Karyan Filigreed Crest. This talisman reduces the FP cost of skills by 25%, making you deal more Transient Moonlights before you pop a Cerulean Tear. Moving on to my Great Rune for this build, and Godric Great Runes is usually my best choice for my builds because of that +5 stats across the board. Now that the main equipment is out of the way, let's move on to the Lunar Samurai's armor set. And for this build, I am wearing my favorite glamour of all time, and this set involves the Land of Reed Helm, Ronin armor for the armor piece, Ronin gauntlets, and Bandit boots for leggings. This is not required by any means, and you can wear anything you prefer. The ragged samurai looks this set provides really stands out. Moving on to my Flask of Wonders physique combination, since this build heavily relies on magic and stance damage, I highly suggest using Magic Shrouding Crack Tier for further increase of damage and Stone Barb Crack Tier for more stance damage. Now that the stats are out of the way, let's move on to the Lunar Samurai's gameplay and optimization tips. More helpful tips that will help you master this build. As usual, the first tip on the list is optimizing your opener. What I usually do is cast Golden Vow first, then follow up with Flame Grant Me Strength. Then I will pop my flask for additional buffs, and afterwards you can either prepare your Glint Blade Trio or Glint Blade Phalanx for additional damage. Then rush into the boss and start performing Transient Moonlights. During this time, try your best to deal with as many attacks as you can, since the stance buff from the physique won't last. If you manage to stagger the boss, you will tremendously gain the upper hand. The second tip on the list is of course taking advantage of your Terra Magica sorcery. Although I don't spam the Transient Moonlight strange attacks, you do have this option. When you are in the sigil, you can spam Transient Moonlight and call it a day, and you will be dealing more damage for your other sorceries as well. The next tip on the list is customize the build according to your preference. You do have an option to use the stronger sorceries in the game, just be sure to adjust your setup. There are a lot of other cool spells that you can use, so consider this. I love the simplicity of this build, and as mentioned, this is my personal build. It's not broken or anything, but its fluidity in combat is the aspect that I enjoyed the most. Comment down below what are the things that you've learned from this video, and give it a like to support the channel. Be sure to subscribe since more samurai builds are coming. But if you want to master dark powers or harness the immense power of the Rakshasa, these build videos are for you. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.